the Cambodians have nominated him for a Peace Prize, and then they kind of produce this video of all these hundreds of monks carrying aloft pictures of Trump to say how grateful they were for his intervention.
Let's take a look at Donald Trump's fresh attack on the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. He doesn't seem to be able to escape the firing line, does he? The president has called on the Fed Reserve to cut interest rates. On a post on Truth Social, Trump said, "Could anybody please inform Jerome, too late Powell, that he's hurting the housing industry very badly. People can't get a mortgage because of him." This isn't usually allowed. Similar to over here, George, you shouldn't really have a US president interfering to this level, should you?
Yeah, he's a kind of a strange candidate to be the bastion of resistance to Trump, isn't he, Jerome Powell, who, after all, was kind of nominated by a Republican and is, a pretty austere figure. But he is the one who is resisting Trump and is refusing to bow to pressure to cut interest rates. And now Trump's kind of criticisms have spread to other members of the Federal Reserve Board. So now he's trying to kind of campaign he's launched this campaign to try and fire Lisa Cook, who's one of the governors on the board, and kind of alleging that she's responsible for mortgage fraud. So he's ratcheting up his campaign. He also previously tried to accuse Jerome Powell of running over budget on this renovation of the Fed's building. That was another kind of way. But it's all about basically trying to get them to lower interest rates.
And look, Mr. Powell had sort of given quite a spiky response when Donald Trump launched that attack on him about building costs for a Federal Reserve building. So he wasn't afraid to aim back. Have we heard anything from him this time, or has he remained sensibly probably pretty quiet?
He doesn't really want to be dragged into a public row, but he was forced to. Yeah, I think you're referring to when Trump went on a tour of the Federal Reserve.
Yeah,
he had this bizarre moment where he kind of produced this kind of sheet of paper and said, "This is how much you're over budget." And Jerome Powell said, "Hang on, you've just added loads of figures that don't apply whatsoever to this renovation." So there was this kind of bizarre live fact-checking going on. This is a real bugbear for Trump, and he's very frustrated because he basically has his way. If you think, he controls Congress, there's a majority of Republican justices on the Supreme Court, and yet here is this kind of truculent economist who is refusing to bow to Trump's pressure and refusing to cut interest rates ahead of next year's midterms.
Is there any grain of truth to what Donald Trump's saying? Should we be fair here? Should Jerome Powell have cut interest rates already?
Well, I think the reason that he's nervous is about the risk of inflation, because he fears that, for example, Trump's tariff policy is going to push up costs and lead to increased inflation. And therefore, whereas other countries, for example, the UK has cut interest rates a number of times, are kind of more willing to go for it. Jerome Powell is basically more nervous because he wants to see how it all plays out over the coming months as those kind of increased prices take effect, and whether that leads to kind of stubborn inflation.
Yeah, so we're at 4.5%, aren't we, over there at the moment? Is that right? I'm just trying to look at the current interest rate over there.
That sounds right, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Well, look, we'll keep a bit of a watch on that one. Emmanuel Macron, meanwhile, has said he's defending his wife's own honour, I presume, in light of comments made from the right-wing commentator Candace Owen, who accused Brigitte Macron of being a man. The French president is in the process of suing Owens as he believes the conspiracy theory had spiralled out of control and that he needed to act over it. Look, this is one of those crazy stories, George, that you can't believe is in any way true. I mean, presumably that is why Macron is suing Owens over this. But why did Owens feel with having to be careful ourselves about this? There's no suggestion from us, of course, that any of this is true. But you have to wonder why Owens felt so emboldened to say it.
I think you just have to look at the wider climate of, Trump MAGA politics and these kind of various influencers and podcasters and YouTubers jostling for attention. And that leads to a kind of a battle of outlandish claims until you get into totally spurious allegations that lead to the president of France suing one of them. So, yeah, you're in a pretty bizarre situation when you have a corner of Trump supporters kind of saying that the wife of a senior of the president of an allied country is in fact a man. It's pretty. I mean, how do you put it into words? It's
ridiculous.
Odd.
Odd. Yes. Yeah. Okay, let's move on from that and go to the Nobel Peace Prize. 70,000 Cambodian monks have broken their vow of silence to nominate Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize.
Dear Mr. President Trump, we are standing here today with hearts full of appreciation. Today, 70,000 Cambodian Buddhist monks are wholeheartedly supportive of our Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet to nominate you for the Nobel Peace Prize. Please accept, Mr. President.
Give us some background here, George. Are these all MAGA monks? What is going on?
So Trump, firstly, is desperate to win the Nobel Peace Prize, and it all stems back to his sense of grievance that Barack Obama won it a year after becoming president. He thinks that's unfair and that he deserves it. And I mean, you mentioned yesterday, you were talking about him having solved 6 wars. Actually, he's recently increased it to 7. I'm not really sure where he kind of pulled that out of the hat from, but apparently he's solved 7 wars now. And he likes to list them quite often. And one of them is that recent kind of fighting you'll remember on the border between Cambodia and Thailand. And the Cambodians have nominated him for a Peace Prize, and then they kind of produced this video of all these hundreds of monks carrying aloft pictures of Trump to say how grateful they were for his intervention. And it's basically a way of currying favor ever since Netanyahu came to Washington and produced this letter and said, look, this is me nominating you for the Nobel Peace Prize. And now it seems, obligatory for any visiting leader to say how worthy Trump is for the Nobel Peace Prize. So the Pakistanis have got in on the act, the Cambodians now as well. The problem is that you're appealing for Trump. He's going to have to appeal to an electorate of, I think it's just 5 kind of Norwegian dignitaries who are kind of ex-politicians and diplomats. And I'm not entirely sure how having 70,000 Cambodian monks on his side is going to help, but maybe it will. Let's see.
Yeah, I was looking at whether Cambodia were after a trade deal, but they've already got one, haven't they? 19% tariff on Cambodian goods going into the United States. So perhaps this is to fend off any further increases, because it's a key manufacturer. I'm just reading this here, but it's all of context. It holds factories for garments and footwear, apparel and sneakers, Gap, Levi's, Nike. Many of them have plants, have factories in Cambodia. So perhaps they are staving off any increase to that 19%. Now, perhaps the biggest winner, George, from last week's meeting in Alaska between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin was a retired, I've just lost my place. Here we go. A retired fire inspector who's been gifted a new $22,000 motorbike from the Russian government. Mark Warren, a resident of Anchorage, appeared on Russian state media where he was gifted a new, is it Ural motorbike? Here's his reaction.
What's that?
What do you think? What do you think it is?
Looks like
It does look like a bike.
looks like a Ural. Show me. Yeah, let's take a look at it. It's wow. Look at that.
This is a personal gift from the President of the Russian Federation.
Very good.
To you.
Very good. It's
Give
just
the key again, please.
Okay.
Can you give it again?
So here's the key.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Why was he given a bike, George?
Well, he went viral on Russian media previously because this is actually his second bike. You've got to imagine a kind of old-fashioned bike with a sidecar. I think, didn't Tintin and Snowy use one of those?
I know that Wallace and Gromit did.
Wallace and Gromit, there's a good example. Yeah, Wallace and Gromit. It's that sort of bike, and he had one. And Russian journalists kind of saw him and recognized this Soviet-era bike and said, what on earth are you doing with one in Alaska? And he said, well, it's actually really annoying because I can't get any spare parts. And this video went viral in Russia. And so as a kind of, as a way of saying, US and Russia ties are warming.
A PR stunt, in other words,
as a
George.
PR stunt, basically. I was trying to be generous to him, but yeah, a PR stunt. They said, have another bike on us. And so he's walked away from the summit with a second Ural, which is this kind of, motorbike with a sidecar.
Wow. Peter in Watford's been in touch, George. I think the monks, these are the Cambodian monks, are glad because the border area disputed is where many ancient pre-Cambodian temples are located that are important to both sides. So there you go. That is why the monks have broken their silence to nominate Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. The nominations are stacking up. Will it happen? Well, it's probably likely, isn't it, George? Do we know how many people have to nominate, how many nominations you need, or is it the strength of the nomination rather than the number of it?
I think that it's basically what 5 people in Oslo decide. So that is the problem. Trump is a campaigner and he's very good at appealing to millions of voters, as has been seen, but appealing to 5, Norwegians who have held very kind of serious positions in world diplomacy is a bit of a different challenge, isn't it?
He'll just cancel it if he doesn't win, won't he? Or he'll come up with his own Peace Prize, probably. George Grylls, always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you. The latest comings and goings from Washington. And we should say as well, actually, that the Texas Republicans have approved the new gerrymandered map. They went on the run, didn't they, George? I'm sort of adding this in as an extra, but it's just because I'm seeing reporting of it now. They went on the run, the Texas Republicans, the Texas Democrats, went on the run because of the redrawing of the map in Texas that, affects votes in the states. And now the new gerrymandered map has been approved, just to add that one on to the end. George, thank you for being with us. Really appreciate it. George Grylls is the Washington correspondent for The Times. You can read George's work and that of the brilliant US team online at thetimes.com and, of course, across the paper on a daily basis. Cheers, George.
Thank you.